Do we know how long it takes people to pay back the line of credit or debt from Australian schools? I don't know this, but I know for me, having gone to UBC, I live in Surrey, which is about an hour and a half away from UBC. So I did choose to not live on campus, but live closer, like live in actual Vancouver. And just the cost kind of daily life and stuff, it took me about, oh, I'm gonna say it took me about 5, 6 years to pay off all my student loans. Yeah, it took a while. I didn't choose the large, like, to get it done fast. If you do get it done within a certain amount of time, or for a certain amount of time afterwards, you don't pay interest on your loans either. I tried to get it done by the time that ended, but I still had a bit more afterwards. I don't know if that translates to what you're gonna say, Anna.
Yeah, and that, I mean, that's perfect, right? Like your own personal experience. There's so many variables. Again, a big question we find that people ask, and it depends. You're looking at Australia, like, yeah, the tuition is, it's high, right? Like it is, it's not, it's something to be aware of and to consider beforehand. So there's a lot, it really does depend on, okay, how much are your, like, what is your loan from a Canadian bank? Were you able to get provincial student loans, right? There's usually a small grant portion though there, most of it's a loan. So it's variable. Honestly, it's
Yeah.
variable. We do hear of, again, like the students choosing to stay on in Australia for a few years and really setting the intention to pay down, to really to feel better about where their loans are
Mhm.
at before coming back to Canada. I know that's possible. You can't do it, and well, I say you can't. It would be very, very challenging to do it just based on your income over a period of a few years, right? You're looking at, yeah, minimum 5+ years based on what
Yeah.
we hear to
Yeah.
pay it back. But it's manageable, right? Like once you're in it, once you're working, it just kind of becomes like, and Caitlin, as you're saying, like, yeah, it's like a
Part of one of
monthly.
your payments.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like a car payment, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And something too that I will say, like, again, I went to UBC. I knew it was super competitive to get in. Truthfully, I didn't really know about the option of training abroad. I'm a bit of a homebody, so I think training going abroad would have been a very difficult decision for me to ultimately make. But let me tell you what my undergrad looked like. I did my undergrad in business. I then decided that I wanted to be a physio because I sucked at business and I did just, it wasn't me. So then but I still wanted to do my business degree. So all of my electives I did in physio. So all of those kind of courses that Anna brought up at the start, I did those as my like easy electives. I volunteered about 20 hours a week. I started up youth programs for volleyball. I made a name for myself volunteering. Like I was one of the educators. I did business competitions. I brought in healthcare into them. Like I had a resume. I knew in order to get into UBC, I had to do that. I couldn't work. I was volunteering all the time and doing school. I also took courses multiple times. So I am not good at physics. I took physics once. I got an A minus. You can't have an A minus and get into UBC. I took it again. I got an A minus. I took it again. I took physics 3 times to get an A so that when I applied for UBC with my 4.0 average, I would get in. So I lost years of my life of making money because I was volunteering and I was dying trying to get the highest marks possible. So hearing some of those stats of what you can do to get in abroad, like you can have a life. You can work, you can save some money. You cannot like donate 20 hours of your time every week to like literally trying to differentiate yourself from the thousands of people who apply in Canada. It is hard. Like it is very hard. I know someone who I just kind of helped get into UBC. And if I told you what she did volunteer wise to get in, like it is wild. And her story, you're like, how have you even got to this point in life where you could get in? Like you've overcome so much. So it's hard. It's very hard to get in Canada. So although you may have lesser tuition in Canada, the sacrifices to have to get in there are substantial.
You know what? I love the way it's perspective, right, Caitlin? Like
Mhm.
a way of looking at it. It's, yeah, what what are the different pathways that are there for you? What do they
Yes.
require? And so,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and choosing what works for.
Yeah. And honestly, if I would have known that I could have just like not done that, and you can get in from high school, like how cool is that? We just had a student who joined us, and I think they're like 20 or 21 and they're done physio school. Like that is crazy. They got in from high school. So you have so many more like earning years in your life too by the time that you actually are a physio, right? Like that's really cool.